How many of you have set a revenue goal without actually taking that one step further and analyzing what you have to do to make that happen? Do you have an actual plan for reaching your revenue goal? My guess is many of you might be shaking your heads no. And I was there too in my past. So if that's you, then today you're going to love this episode because I'm diving deeper into the numbers of your business to help you determine what you need to sell at what price point and to how many clients in order to reach your goals. Yes, friends, the actual math behind hitting your revenue goal. Promise it won't be too complicated, and you may actually feel a sense of relief having this mapped out. Are you that driven entrepreneur who believes that working harder holds the key to your dreams? Are you drowning in the day-to-day tasks, wishing you had more time to strategize and cast the vision for your business growth? Hi, I'm Donna Dubé, your guide on this entrepreneurial journey. I've walked in your worn-out shoes, burning the midnight oil, convinced that sheer hard work was the secret to success. Just one more email, one more task, until I found myself on a one-way track to burnout. But here's the twist in the tale. I discovered that success isn't just about working harder, it's about working smarter. It's about being intentional with our time. It's about steering our ship with focus, because no team, system, or automation can outperform a lack of direction. In this podcast, I'm sharing with you all the strategies for business growth that it took me years to learn. If you're ready to step out of the daily overwhelm so you can amplify your profits, then I'm ready to teach you. I believe the only limit to your business growth is the one you set for yourself. Go grab a notebook, warm up that cup of tea, and let's do this. Welcome back, CEO and business leader. Can I just take a minute here and start by telling you that a big part of the work I do with my clients is actually digging into the reality of their business. Whether it's how they use their time, their problem-solving team issues, hiring questions, strategies, it's just one of my favorite things to do. And a big part of this is being objective and looking at the data or the metrics in order to make an informed decision. And today it's all about the math and some number crunching. But number crunching so that you don't just set these big goals out of thin air, but you really based it on facts, on the data. Before we dive in today, I want to ensure that you've had a chance to listen to the previous episode 47, where we talk about effective strategies for setting revenue goals. If you haven't, please press pause, go back and listen to that episode first, because it really sets the foundation for what we're going to cover today. And when you finish the steps in the previous episode, you will have determined a revenue goal that is based on facts, based on what you need to pay yourself in order to pay your bills, allowing you as CEO and business leader to be paid regularly and not just taking what's left over in your business, if there is any. So now that you have a revenue goal that's based on data and not just feelings, how will you achieve it? Yeah, I'm asking you, how will you sell your program, service, or offer? And at what price point? And to how many people? And this is where things get a little bit tricky, and most of us turn the cheek and run away and go do something else. And this is, I know, there's a lot of talk out there that makes it seem like it's easier than it actually is. I know you've heard the saying before, oh, just create it and they will come, right? Just put a website up and people will buy. And that's no longer the case in 2024. And I want us to look at the math behind this. But I promise I'm going to make it easy for you. So during this episode, I'm going to be using the Get Paid Like a CEO resource. And if you don't have it yet, I highly suggest you press pause, drop down to the show notes, and click the link. This will be an invaluable resource for both last week's episode as well as today's. All right, to keep it simple, we're going to be looking at a goal of hitting a revenue of $100,000 a year. So a 6-figure business. And we learned from last week's episode that would mean, if we were following the profit first formula, that we would be paying ourselves around $50,000 a year. Okay, so how do we figure out how to get 6 figures in revenue in our business? We have to make sure that the math works. We have to look at the product or the program that we're offering, what price we're offering at, and how many sales we need to make that each of those offers in order to reach our revenue goal. So to do the math, we're going to start with which programs or services you have right now and what the price point you're selling them at. So if you refer to the 3rd tab of the resource, it's called Revenue Calculator. And there you have the opportunity to list 3 programs or services that you currently are selling and the price that you're selling them for. You also want to estimate what percentage of your revenue you would like to come from each of those products, right? So let's say you have 3 products and you want 50% of your revenue from one and then 25% from the other 2. The bottom line is the total percentage needs to equal 100, obviously, out of those 3 products. If you have more program services in your business than those 3, that's okay. For right now, to keep this simple, I just want to focus on your top 3. So you think about your signature offer and maybe 2 other offers that you have, but 3 maximum. If you have less than 3 offers, no problem. There's some instructions there on what to do to leave that line blank. All right. So once you enter your 3 products, you enter the price point and you enter the percentage of total revenue you want to come from that product, you're going to see that it will calculate the total clients you have to sell of each program or service in order to reach that revenue goal of $100,000. And this is all based on what we call your close rate. So if you don't know your close rate right now, that's okay. That's something we can estimate for now, and you can get it as we move forward. But the bottom line is, if you have 1,000 people in your audience, that doesn't mean 1,000 people are going to buy your program, right? Some of those 1,000 are actually going to read your email, maybe click through to your sales page. Some are going to bother reading your sales page or part of your sales page. Some are going to click through to your checkout, and some of those will actually end up buying. So I want to give some scenarios here so you can see sort of the numbers behind it. So let's say we took our first program. That's going to be a 1-to-1 offer of high ticket coaching for $10,000. And your goal is to sell 10 of them in order to hit your revenue goal of $100,000 a year. So how many people do you need to tell about this offer? How many people need to actually engage with you about this offer? And this is not just about how many people saw your sales page. We can calculate that over on the next tab called visibility. Don't go there right now. I don't want you to get confused, but that's for later. Right now, this is about the people who actually got on a call with you, or they saw your sales page, or they're actively engaged in the buying process. And you'll realize that there's different sales mechanisms, and they convert very differently. And I think this is really important to understand. So as it goes through these examples, I'm going to show you different sales mechanisms, and you're going to see the conversion rates or the industry standards for those conversion rates and why you need to get in front of different number of people depending on what that sales mechanism is. Okay, so back to our example, we have a $10,000 offer and our goal is to make 10 sales, to get 10 clients in at $10,000 each. So if I'm going to use sales calls as my mechanism to get those clients, I'm actually going to get on Zoom or the phone with these people in order to invite them to work with me, right? In order to buy this product or service. And then because of that, because it's so high touch in nature, you're going to find that I'm going to have a higher conversion rate. So for this example, we're going to say that our close rate is 25%, meaning 1 in every 4 calls should convert to a client. Sales calls tend to be the highest converting sales mechanism out there, so you don't have to get in front of as many people if you're using sales calls as your conversion mechanism. So if you need 10 clients at $10,000 each in order to hit your revenue goal, then that means over a course of a year, you need to talk to 40 people. So about 10 people every 3 months. Well, that sounds absolutely manageable, right? You'll talk to around 10 people every 3 months, and 1 in 4 of those will convert to a paid client. So you see, with this type of mechanism, you don't need a ton of people in order to make that business work, right? Very different from a $9 item at Walmart, where you're going to have to get in front of many people to be able to reach that same revenue goal. All right. So think about it this way. How many people do I actually need to get in front of in order to make the sales that I want? And the more high touch you are, the more engaging your sales process is, the higher overall the conversion rate is going to be. And we can always add high touch elements, even if we're trying to sell something in a different way. So let's look at another example. Let's say you want to have a launch to get a new program out into the world. Good or bad, many people have their opinions about launches, but the truth is, you do have to get in front of more people than if you're just enrolling people with one-on-one calls. However, the plus side is that once you've created these assets in your business, the ways to get in front of people and tell people and invite people to work with you, it becomes rinse and repeat. So you use those same assets over and over again. So it doesn't take as much of your time and or your team's time as the one-to-one sales calls will. So let's say, for our example, a typical webinar or challenge might convert people from that challenge or webinar at around 5%. That means if you have 100 people taking your challenge, then 5 people might actually buy your product or your program. So if we have, let's say, a program and we're using the same price point, just to keep it simple, so it's $10,000, right? At the end of that challenge or webinar, we want 5% of the people who participated to convert. So if you're wanting 10 sales at $10,000, you're going to need to have 200 people go through that launch, go through that webinar or that challenge. So you see the difference here, because the conversion rate is less than the one-on-one sales calls. We need to get in front of more people, right? Now, I want to preface this by saying that the conversion rates from launches can vary widely. And if you're thinking 5%, oh, I have a conversion rate much higher than that, or the other way around, I don't have that high of a conversion rate from a webinar, know that it changes a lot between industries, between niches. And so I'm just using an industry standard here at 5% for the sake of our conversation. But you use the numbers that you know work for you and your business. Okay, so if we're using a 5% conversion rate, we need 10 sales. That means we need 200 people participating in our launch to hopefully get 10 sales. All right. What happens if you don't want to do, a full-on launch? You just want to send out some emails to the people on your list, right? You want to put some people through an email sequence to hopefully get them to purchase your product. A little bit easier than a full-on launch or a 5-day challenge, right? So let's say an email-only launch is going to convert at 1%, which may sound really low to you, but honestly, the industry average is around 1 to 2% conversion from email launch. So if it's 1 to 2% and you're still looking for those 10 sales at $10,000, you need 1,000 people to see that offer. So hopefully by now you can see there's a massive difference here between having 40 people on a sales call to get 10 clients, or getting 200 people into your webinar or your challenge to get those same 10 clients, or having 1,000 people on your email list to see your sales page to get your 10 clients. So depending on the sales mechanism that you choose, the number of people you have to get in front of is going to be different. All right, so if you're sitting there going, why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you this because it's so important to actually take the time to break down the numbers and know how you will reach your goal. Next, I want you to ask yourself, are these the right price points. How many people do I need to sell at that price point in order to hit my revenue goal? So let's take an example. We have a coach who sells 6 months worth of coaching for $2,500, 2 calls a month, let's say. And if you're listening to me now and you're thinking, oh, $2,500, that's really high. I don't think I have anything that I could ever offer for $2,500. And you might be thinking that, the size of that package is just way too big. I understand that. And it's especially true if you've only been charging hourly for your coaching or for your teaching or for your training or your consulting. And I've talked to so many people who are service providers who really have been on this hourly model for quite some time. And it's really common for people to start out with an hourly model because that's what we see everyone else doing. And that's what we know from our employee standpoint, right? Is to charge an hourly rate and get clients to sign up for a session or 2 at a time. However, I want you to think a little bit more critically about this. Let's take an example. If you wanted to get fit and you wanted to hire a personal trainer, would one session get you to your goals? Obviously not, right? For a lot of the clients that I work with, the same as a personal trainer, you need a longer container for both the client and for you to have a win-win. So when you have a longer container and you sign them up for 6 months at a time, it does better outcomes for the client and it's better outcomes for you as a service provider. So in that way of thinking, this price point suddenly doesn't seem so off because you're committing, right? You're committing to work with this client for 6 months at a time, long enough time period to actually see them get a real result. And on their end, they're committing to themselves. They're committing to this process. They're saying, yes, I'm going to sign up for 6 months instead of just a session here or a session there because I really do want to get the results. So if you're in the model right now where you're charging hourly and only for a session or 2, I want you to think about this. Think about a longer container and a package deal where you can really show your expertise and really help your clients get the results they're looking for. All right, one final thing I want to say about this is when it comes to plugging in your numbers and looking at the math behind how many people to get their desired revenue you need, I'm rarely looking at leveraged or passive income first. So the reason for this is as you focus on your higher end, your higher touch programs and services first, it starts to build a baseline revenue, right? A baseline revenue is where by taking on these clients, you can stabilize your revenue and give yourself a runway for a period of time. So let's say you bring on a client, it takes 3 months, 6 months, or even 12 months. For that period of time, when you've contracted to work with your client, they're paying you, even if it's on a payment plan, and you're getting steady revenue from them. And you're delivering your service or offer to them over that period of time. But that steady revenue allows you a runway of time to figure out other things, to figure out, how do I build an email list, right? How do I record and create an online program? What does a group program look like? And would it fit with my business model? And how do I actually launch something if I want to launch? So these things take a little bit more time. They're a little more complicated, need some more strategy, and a bit more trial and error than inviting people one-on-one to work with you, right? So my suggestion is always start with that one-on-one, those higher touch programs to get your baseline revenue, to get clients in the door and to provide the result that the client is looking for. And this gives you steady income while you look at what you want to grow next. All right. I think looking at the numbers are just so incredibly important because if we don't make sure that all the math works out, do you know where we find ourselves? We find ourselves underselling. We find ourselves not really realizing how many people we need to get these offers in front of. And I want you to remember that for each offer you create in your business, you have 3 systems behind the scenes that you also have to create. There's a marketing system, there's a sales system, and there's the delivery system. So each time you add a new offer, you're not just adding one system, you're adding 3. So the more offers you create, the more complexity is going on behind the scenes of your business. And I tend to see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially once you've been in it a few years. There's a lot of trial and error which comes with the territory, right? And sometimes there's a lot of creation without necessarily editing. And this is where we can actually sabotage ourselves from hitting our revenue goals, because we start focusing on creating more and more and more, different ways to work with us, different products, different programs, different services. And this actually dilutes our efforts because it takes so much more effort to market, sell, and deliver each offer. So if you find yourself in this position, I recommend pausing and then simplifying. Simplifying and focusing on one core signature offer. Do your best to hit your revenue goal, or at least the majority of your revenue goal, with that single signature offer. Once you're there, then you can make some additional offers as it feels aligned. So it's not going to take away from your core signature offer, right? So beyond that core, you may add some other layers of complexity, but not until you have that signature offer and you have 3 rinse and repeat systems for that offer: marketing, sales, and client delivery. Alrighty. As you work with these numbers in your own business, I want you to have fun with it. Play around with different close rates, different price points, and see what the reality shows. Think about, can I realistically serve this many clients and get in front of enough people to make all the numbers work? And if you start to feel like maybe this is a lot more than you thought it would be, then think about, how can you play with it? Does it mean you need to look at a different price point? Does it mean you need to simplify and let go of a couple of offers and really double down on just 1 or 2? Those are usually going to be the top recommendations that I give my clients when we're going through this process. It's not to add more, but to look at how we can do less, but better. And how we can do that at the price point that allows us to have the schedule we want and need, and to be able to work with the number of clients that we want and still hit our revenue goals. Alrighty, I hope this episode was helpful for you. Please do take the time to take action, because just listening to me won't change a thing in your business. Actually doing the work will help you have so much clarity, and clarity is everything. Until next time, take it easy. Thank you for joining me on this episode of CEO Amplify. I appreciate you being part of our thriving community of ambitious business owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, I kindly ask you to share this podcast with a friend and take a hot minute to rate and leave a review. It would mean the world to me. Your feedback helps me reach more people and continue providing valuable content. Thanks so much for your support. Keep shining, and we'll catch you on the next episode.